Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back. So I wanted to cover really a few things right from the beginning here that I never went into, and a few people have asked me about. So why did I name the channel Gifted Afflicted? The reason I named the channel Gifted Afflicted is because I believe that we all have gifts. Some people are gifted in art, some people are gifted in music, some people are gifted in numbers, some people are gifted in being highly analytical. There's just a wide variety of different ways in which we are gifted. Some people are gifted in being nurturing, some people are gifted in being caretakers. I believe that we all have gifts. I also believe we all have afflictions. Afflictions is just something that we're struggling with. Some people are afflicted with loss of a loved one, loss of a family member. Some people are afflicted with disease. Some people are afflicted with pain, something they went through as a child, abuse. People are afflicted with addiction. Just all, excuse me, I'm sorry, I have allergies. I do believe we all have gifts. I do believe we all have afflictions. I believe basically every person is unique in what they are gifted in and what they're afflicted in, although there's a lot of similarities as well. And the whole idea of my channel is taking things that we are afflicted in and turning those into strengths, focusing on what our gifts are and developing those further. In a nutshell, that's like the whole main emphasis of my channel. You know, I'm not just publicly making an ass out of myself just to be making an ass out of myself, although that's what it feels like often when I'm recording, because I am so introverted. I am such a private person. That's why if you see me on social media, it is very foreign to me. Being on YouTube doesn't seem as foreign because I love watching YouTube videos. So it was like a natural step for me to think, okay, if I'm going to get my message out there, maybe it should be via YouTube, because I'm already very familiar with how other people create videos and, you know, being inspired by what is already happening in YouTube. I feel much more drawn, and I watch very little actual traditional TV, and almost everything I watch is very specialized interests that I find on YouTube. So currently I'm learning about sewing and how to upcycle and repurpose things. Prior to that, I was on the reselling rabbit hole. I was learning all about reselling, wholesale, opening a business. There's just such a wide variety of things on YouTube that I felt like this would be the perfect place. I started a blog, and the blog is also Gifted Afflicted, but the blog is actually dead because I started YouTube and I started the blog around the same time, and I was just trying to kind of figure out which one was going to stick, which one felt better. And at the time I started them, I honestly thought that I was going to be able to do both simultaneously, along with all of my work and everything, all of my mom duties. So I took on a little too much. The blog was causing me a lot of flashbacks, so it was affecting my sleep. I was going into more detail, not really diving that deep into detail, but I was going into enough detail to where it was causing me flashbacks, which was disrupting my sleep, which was causing me anxiety, which was getting me back into depression, and so it was affecting my mental health. The blog was. So the blog is dead, and the YouTube channel continues, and that's why I named both Gifted Afflicted. Okay, moving on. Today I want to keep things short and sweet because it's a gym day for me, which means I need to cram everything into a tiny little pocket of time so that I can take the second half of the day and go to the gym. So today's topic is about resourcefulness. So being that I was on the streets for a while, I know about being resourceful. So in my past, I was basically resourceful as far as my mentality. I was an extreme opportunist. If there was the opportunity to lie, rob, manipulate, I was on it. That's how I survived. So I took all of my resourcefulness was very negative in my past. But there's a good to that, because now having my own business and having to start from scratch, and anybody that has started a business from scratch might be very familiar with not having much money. So I didn't have hardly any money. Actually, didn't have any money when I started my business. And there's been several instances where I've spent my last dollar back on my business, not knowing if things were going to work out. Good or bad, it is what it is, and I've done it many times. And the point I'm making, and where I'm going with this is, if I wasn't resourceful, the risk would worry me more. But because I'm resourceful, I know I've had nothing before. I've made it out on the other end. And even if I have nothing, I still have my mind, which is going to help me come up with other ways to get money, right? So for a long time in my sobriety, I was stuck. I didn't know how to get money legally. I only knew how basically committing crimes to get things, to turn into drugs, was like my vicious cycle. So when I got clean, I was stuck because I was like, how do I get money and not get arrested? How do I get money in recovery? The gist of it was I started to go back to what I knew, which was things are worth money. And so I started to figure out what in my area could I get a hold of for little to no money, possibly free, that I could sell for money. Now, the old way of selling, I give it to the dealer, they give me drugs. The new way of selling is post it, take pictures of it with my iPad, post it on the internet, and somebody buys it, they send money via PayPal or Poshmark. I get the money, I take that, I can distribute it into paying bills, purchasing more things for my stores, and so on and so forth. So in the very beginning, when I had no money, absolutely no money, and I wanted to start doing something. I was staying home with my son and I was going crazy. I wasn't built to just stay home and only stay home and not work. I missed work. I wanted to do some sort of work. When I was on the street, I was always working. I was staying busy. I was out there grinding. So I missed working. I missed contributing in some way to something, and I wanted to help with my household. We didn't have a lot of money. All of the financial burden was on my husband. Yes, it was great that I could stay home and take care of our son, but I wanted to do more. So I started to look around, and at this point in my recovery, I'd been clean for, I think it maybe a little over a year. So I'd acquired a decent amount of stuff, not a lot of stuff though, but I noticed what I had a lot of was clothing, shoes, accessories. And so that's when I first discovered Poshmark, and I started posting those and I started selling those. And that was when the very beginning of my business started. It wasn't even a business at that point because I was just doing it as a hobby. But that's when the idea was born, and I started taking action, and I started actively selling things. And then shortly after that, I moved on to eBay, and I started basically what I did to learn about what was selling, what the market was interested in at that present moment was I went around my whole apartment and I downloaded the Amazon seller app, and I scanned anything with a barcode just to see what was that worth on Amazon. And then I did the same thing with eBay, used items. I typed every single item I could think of that I didn't particularly care if I kept it or got rid of it. I typed it in to see what was it worth. And then after doing that, then I started to, after I was finished posting everything that I had for sale, then I started to scan things that I wasn't interested in selling just to see what was the value on those items. And so then I got to the point where I had sold enough of my things that I took all of the money that I made, and that's when I had my first $400 that I went to a thrift store and I just bought a bunch of things that I was going to resell. So resourcefulness can be really crucial, because if you're struggling, what you could think about is how to repurpose things. Like when I was completely broke and I didn't even have a place to live and I was just bouncing around from house to house, there was times when I would invest $1 in a shampoo, and that shampoo was my shampoo. It was my detergent to wash my clothes. It was my dish soap. It was my conditioner. It was my body wash. That shampoo was all of those things for $1. You see, I had to be resourceful. I had to be creative. There was times in my addiction when, just out of sheer boredness and missing having things that were of value to anyone, I used to make things. I would just take random junk that people had thrown away and I would kind of craft it into something new, just using materials I had laying around on hand, discarded items. And sometimes I would make something that somebody else thought was cool enough to steal from me. And that was like the ultimate compliment. And the time I would like be laughing inside, I would be laughing inside thinking, they just literally stole my trash. They just literally stole my trash. But there was really a lot of bad resourcefulness too. There was times, there was more times than I would care to admit where I felt completely comfortable breaking into houses, breaking into businesses, so that I could take stuff and use that stuff to get drugs. There was times where I saw a pair of keys and all I saw in that person was the keys. I would manipulate the person into trusting me just so that I could take their keys when they weren't watching, steal their car, and get where I really wanted to go. And these were times that now I'm very, 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 I don't know if I would say ashamed, because it taught me a lot, right? It taught me about life and how fleeting it is, being shot at, just knowing how quickly your life can be taken away makes it feel more valuable versus the times when I was a teenager and I thought that I was invincible. The older I got, the more serious the consequences became. The more I started to realize that my life, in my addiction, my life was, it was like I wasn't really aware of, it was like I wasn't afraid to die because I was already miserable. So dying would have just been to put me out of my misery permanently. But when I became sober, I would say it's not necessarily a bad thing that I had all these life or death experiences or close calls with death, because what now as a sober person I can appreciate is just how fleeting life is, and how that's why I try to do so much with my time now. I try to contribute in good ways. I try to put good out into the community. I try to put as much good out into the world as I can, because I've been doing the wrong thing for so long that it's becoming very aware to me that I have a very limited time here on earth, versus like when I was a teenager and I thought I was invincible and I thought I was going to live forever, and I just remember being bored all the time, oh, I'm so bored, what should we do? And then just going to go stir shit up because you're bored, versus it's like now I understand my time is valuable, our time is fleeting, my time is my most precious commodity, where before I didn't really understand that. But had I not gone through all that, I wouldn't be able to see it as clearly as I do now. So for those reasons, I'm not ashamed of the decisions I've made. I'm grateful for them, as crazy as that sounds, because they taught me those lessons that I now am able to absorb, versus never having experienced that. I may not fully appreciate the life I have right now. It's like I had to experience the dark to really see the good when I came into it. It's like if I wouldn't have gone that deep into the darkness, I wouldn't have really been able to identify the good and appreciate the good as much as I'm able to now. So for those reasons, I'm very, very, very grateful and appreciative of all the past trauma and misery and bad choices I made, because they helped form me into a more well-rounded, a more stronger, mentally stronger person, a more empathetic person, a more understanding person, a less judgmental person, um, a more resourceful person, and all these things came from me going through my addiction. Back to being resourceful. Being resourceful for me was really, really important because it helped me hone in on my creativity. It forced me to think creatively about problem solving. So whenever I have a problem of something I need for my business, my first instinct isn't to go spend the money. So a problem I often have is getting my cost of goods lower, or finding ways to, like, say, have a logo designed or a website designed, or get branding or images, or just all sorts of wide variety of problems that you come across. My first instinct isn't to throw money at the problem. My first instinct is to say, is what can I do to solve this problem? How can I tackle this in a more creative, efficient, cost-effective way, basically? So one thing that I've been doing since I was on drugs is, again, tapping into what I enjoy doing. I loved making art even when I was addicted to drugs. I've talked about that a little bit. When I was on drugs, even a few times I was able to draw somebody something and exchange that for drugs. So that is a skill I can transfer into my regular life, because I was able to create my own logo for my store. I was able to do a lot of the graphics for my digital designs and digital products that I'm learning. God, why do I say so much? That's so annoying. I have to go in there and fucking edit out every last little So, and I say that a lot too. Shit. It's like those little time fillers. You just have that dead space and you're trying to fill it. No. Let me think. Let me enjoy the silence. I would think to myself, what skills do I have? What am I good at? And how can I use that as an asset? So another thing I used to do is I used to write, and some of my writings would be stolen as well. Those might have been stolen just because people felt they were offensive, which they were very offensive. I was writing about what I was going through, and at the time I was very hateful, angry, violent person. So another way we were resourceful is being very creative with communications. So in the past, when dude was locked up, I would be writing letters, but you have to write in code because all of the letters are read by the corrections officers, or most of all the letters are, especially with repeat offenders, pretty much all of the letters they're screening the letters, they're reading over them to see if there's anything that they can use basically against this person to build a new case. So anything relating to drugs, any sort of criminal activity, anything with people, I would change the names, I would use code words. The same thing with being on the run. There was times when the police would just show up last minute. We would just flee the apartment, flee the house, flee the scene, and then we would be on foot and we would be separated, because it's best to go separate, because together they're more likely to find you. So even separate, we had like our own language, and our language was via like a whistle. So there were several different whistles that we did to like let that person know very low key like where they're at, and the whistles almost sounded like birds. So that was something that was very creative, because I could tell his whistle versus a bird's whistle versus a police officer trying to whistle to sound like him, or a bird just singing versus actually his whistle. So things like that, you get very, very creative when when your back's against the wall. You get very, very creative. So resourcefulness, resourcefulness, resourcefulness. I cannot say I can't really illustrate how powerful that has been in building a business and me being able to contribute financially to help out with our household. Well, I'm far from where I want to be financially. I feel like I have developed a lot of skills through my art, through my reselling, through my thrifting, through my research, to where I've been able to find basically a solid stream of income from month to month to month. Now I need to focus on growing that income so that I can do bigger and better things. But as somebody that's not purely driven by money, money isn't my main motivation. That is something I constantly have to sort of remind myself, we do want to grow. We do want to make more so that I can do more things. But just coming from being broke for so long, it's really easy to see a little bit of money and be like, you know what, I'm going to be okay. Being resourceful has also come in handy time and time again with my son, and basically knowing how to cut costs, or just how, I guess you could just say overall household. It could just has come in handy with just overall household expenses, because I know that clothing to me isn't worth much money because I know how cheaply it can be obtained. So I'm not going to be going out and buying my son all designer clothing, and I never was, even from the very beginning. I was getting his stuff secondhand at like consignment sales, consignment shops, where the stuff was all very nicely put together. But the point was, I was not buying his clothing brand new. I was getting it at a really, really deeply discounted rate so that I could have the extra money for things like diapers that I was going to have to purchase new, and just being able to get creative with what I spend and where I spend. Excuse my stomach. It's lunchtime for me, so I'm going to wrap this up. But yeah, just resourcefulness overall has been such a strong and powerful thing in my life, and it continues to reoccur over and over again in different situations where I just notice that a lot of people's default isn't resourcefulness. A lot of people's default is to dispose of and to repurchase, to buy new, to spend retail money on everything. And for me, I'm very much, even if I get to the point where I have a huge amount of money and I don't need to buy anything used and I can get all of my stuff brand new, I'm still going to go out and thrift. I'm still going to go out to estate sales. I'm still going to donate everything that is in good condition that can be reused by somebody else, because I'm just so aware of it, going from somebody that had nothing to knowing what it's like to struggle with little to nothing and to gradually build yourself up. And I know how powerful that can be, to just help in even the slightest way with overall waste and reducing the amount of things that go to landfills and repurposing and reusing just for the environment overall. It's just something I'm really passionate about. But just being that I have gone from such extremes and experienced so many things firsthand, it makes me more aware of it. So I know it's something that I'm always going to be involved with in some way or another. And I guess the point of this video is something that was really bad something that was a really bad negative characteristic in the street: resourcefulness, manipulating people mentally, robbing, stealing, lying, cheating, everything like that. How that resourcefulness ended up being reborn into my sober life, and it actually ended up being a really powerful thing for helping run my household at a very low cost, helping me to build a business from scratch, and helping when things get really rough not to panic, because I know there are skills and because I know there's always going to be a way to generate more income, to generate more money. I just have to sit back and think and get creative as I've done before. And so if you are somebody that struggles financially, I would really encourage you to sit down and like write a list of all the things that you're good at. Are you good at making things? Are you good at crafting? Are you good at cooking? Are you good at caretaking? Write down all of your strengths, and then also write down all of the things you own. And maybe you can find also maybe write all of the things that you're passionate about and just start to review it, and then use YouTube and type in things that you're interested in, and like you may stumble upon a whole new way of thinking, of doing, of being able to take something that you enjoy or are passionate about, or even just something that you're good at, and doing something with that, even if it isn't to turn it into money, if it is to help somebody in some way. That could be a gift that you're putting out. Also, you can take your gift and maybe monetize it, maybe help turn it into a money source for you, and then your job can be just something that you overall love to do. I want that for so many more people than have that. I want people to be less miserable. I want people to be doing what they love. I want people to be living their life to the fullest, and being like fully awake and fully aware and fully present and fully appreciative of our life and our time and everybody in it and everything that you can do. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I could go on and on, but I will cut it for today because I have to go to the gym and I have to do a few more things before I head off. So as always, thank you so much for listening to me ramble on, and until next time, stay strong, stay grateful, and stay positive.